Hello, Fearless Gamers, and welcome to another episode of Touching Base here on Fearless Games.
Welcome back, guys. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. How's it going?
Uh, short answer, capitalism. But yeah, overall everything's fine. I work, home, sleep, work, home, sleep. Um, I did, however, check out The Acolyte
Yep.
on Disney Plus. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I have. For those who may not know because you just don't read the internet, Disney has released a brand new series called Star Wars: The Acolyte, which takes place, I think, was it 100 years before episode one?
Yeah, so it's 100 years before the Phantom Menace,
Uh-huh.
during what they call the High Republic era, which has been like a whole like media push that they've done over the last what is it 2024 now, right? So
Yes.
it's been like 4 or 5 years. It was 4 years, I think, because the first books and stuff came out during the pandemic in 2020. If no, 2021. It's like 3 years now.
Okay.
Because I remember because it started while I was unemployed. And that was in 2021. So back in 2021, they launched it with a series of novels and comics. And it's set, I think, like the first novels I think are set like 300 years before Phantom Menace.
Hmm.
And so it's supposed to be during the height of the
Yeah.
Republic prior to its fall and sort of show what leads into
Yeah.
that fall.
This was like that era just after like the Sith War when they believe that they dealt with that and it's all over and done with, I believe.
I don't know if it's just after the Sith War. I think it's a significant amount like after
Yeah.
that because
Yeah,
it's
I'm using the
well
I'm using
after
the
the
term very poorly.
yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to clarify.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's after the Sith War. The Jedi believe the Sith are no longer an issue.
Hmm.
It's after the Jedi Mandalorian Wars, clearly,
Yep.
because there have been no Mandalorian, at
Yep.
least in what I've read. I read the first phase of the adult and young adult novels. I
Hmm.
didn't read the there's like a third tier of novels for like middle school kids. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
I didn't read that. I just couldn't get into it.
The only thing I've read was the book Light of the Jedi, which is during that hyperspace crash
Yes,
incident.
yes, that's the very first uh High Republic thing that came out.
Mm,
It's the first novel. It was very good in my opinion.
very good, yes.
I liked that they kind of led into the era with what is essentially a disaster movie.
Yep.
Like the big problem in it, like yeah, there are antagonists, but the big conflict that they're resolving was essentially a disaster.
Yep.
I thought that was a neat way to do it.
And it was a very
Um,
unique disaster because you never like it answered a kind of an interesting question of like what happens if something goes wrong during hyperspace travel.
right, and I think that's one of the neat things about when it's set is it's like hyperspace is still this new thing,
Hmm.
and I thought that was kind of neat. But instead of getting off track, basically
Yep.
I've read that book and then like the two books that came after.
Hmm.
So I haven't read any of phase two, and I don't think phase three has started yet.
Yeah, I don't believe
Um,
so. I think they're prepping for the first novel
yeah,
to come out.
yeah. And so the Acolyte takes place after phase three will have taken place.
Hmm.
And I do believe there's been a time skip between phase one and phase two, and there'll be another time skip between phase two and phase three. I
Hmm.
think. Don't quote me on it. If I'm wrong, get in the comments. Um, but so it's there is like a significant time difference between Light of the Jedi, which you and I have both read, and the Acolyte. It's like I think it's like 200 years almost.
Yeah, something that sounds
Um,
about right.
so the Acolyte is, like we said, set about 100 years before Phantom Menace, and it's the basic premise of the show for people who if you're watching this, why go watch the show before you
Yeah,
watch this
yeah.
because we're
Before we continue,
gonna spoiler
spoilers.
alert. Yeah, I was about to start to like go. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, if you want to get in on the discussion, go watch the first two episodes. Pirate them if you have to. Disney. Um, but yeah, so the idea is the Acolyte is the moment in the timeline when the Sith kind of like come back.
Hmm.
in a way that like which the premise kind of bothers me a little bit because that's what the Phantom Menace was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea of like finally the Sith have returned is
Yep.
what that whole prequel trilogy was about.
And the
So it's
prequel
like
trilogies were like, we've had no evidence that they exist right now.
right. So it does kind of make me wonder what payoff we're gonna get in the
Mm.
Acolyte, over the course of the show, because it's like we know that it can't have that much of an impact that 100 years later they're going, the Sith don't exist.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a flaw in the premise.
Yep. Because,
Um,
like, for anyone who doesn't remember, Qui-Gon Jinn brings up the fact that he's pretty sure Maul is a Sith, and the Council's like, "You're crazy, dude. They don't exist."
mhm. It was like one of the that's honestly was sort of what led to the downfall of the Jedi is that they were so firm in their own belief that they had won
Yep.
that they could not conceive of a world where their enemy had returned.
Yep.
So I think this also calls back to one of my problems with the High Republic as a like media entity, as it were.
Hmm.
I think they should have set it further back.
Okay.
Setting it 100 years before the Phantom Menace, like 100 years, yeah, that sounds like a lot, but
That.
there are people alive now who
Yep.
were alive 100 years ago.
Yeah. Like Yoda is around during this.
I mean, you can't count Yoda. Yoda's
Yeah.
been alive for
But
900 years.
yeah.
But
But I'm
yeah,
saying,
Yoda
like,
does
there's
make
some dude
appearances.
who remembers this who can go, wait a minute, they did
Right.
show up again.
Right. Like how like the Yoda question fucks everything up. But even
Yep.
beyond the Yoda question, like let's say Yoda wasn't around or is thrown into another dimension for 150 years or something. Whatever. They answer the Yoda question somehow. There's still the question of like other people, like dudes like Ki-Adi-Mundi. How old is he? Is he 50? Is he 60? I
Mm,
know there are a lot of species in Star Wars that
yep. And a
live
lot of them
two,
live.
three, four times as long as a human being.
Yeah.
Clearly, and this leads into a character in the High Republic, Vernestra Rowe,
Yep.
is in Light of the. I think she makes a brief appearance in Light of the Jedi, but she's in
Yes.
Phase One
Yep.
as a teenager, and now 200 years later, essentially, she's an adult in the Acolyte. So
Yeah. And
clearly,
she kind of looks like she's like, her early 30s. Like,
right,
she doesn't seem that old.
right. So clearly, the Miri Allen species um, lives can live a couple 100 years.
Yep.
So you're telling me that there's not a single Miri Allen Jedi who was young during the time frame of the Acolyte and survived all the way to Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those people remember, wait a minute. That's and even beyond that, the level of technology in Star Wars.
Yep.
You have the HoloNet, you have holocrons, you
Yep.
have books and stuff. You're telling me that I can tell you
They-
roughly what happened during the American Revolutionary War. That
Yep.
was 200 years ago. I can
Um,
tell you stuff that happened in 1924.
yep.
It might not be off the top of my head, but I can look it up. And
Yep.
that's with real world technology. You're telling me nobody can go on the HoloNet during the Phantom Menace and go, wait a minute, guys, the Sith, they made a push like 100 years ago.
And episode 2, the primary, if it's not in our records, it doesn't exist. They pride themselves on having the best record keeping system.
Sure, which I mean, granted, the that a part of that movie was that somebody fucked with the records.
Yes.
So it's like, sure, you could argue that Palpatine went in and messed with the Jedi records to erase that thing that happened 100 years ago. But you're telling me nobody else has like a blog?
Yep.
Like there's not some Jedi fanboy, like some real like Coruscant weeaboo who's like running a blog about Jedi history? Come on, man. You're telling me that in all of Star Wars, there's no random historian nerd who got his PhD in history of the Force, even though he's not a Jedi himself.
Yep. Yeah, no. It
Personally, I think that's a bit of a flaw. It's a little bit of a plot hole.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it is it is set up as one of those don't think about it, but
Yeah, it's very
we're
much
Star
that
Wars nerds, so we think
right.
about it.
It's very much the Harrison Ford, it ain't that kind of movie,
Movie
kid.
kid.
If someone's looking at your hair, we're all in a lot of trouble. Like it
Yep.
is that kind of a problem,
Yep.
but at this point, it kind of is that kind of movie. You
Yeah.
know, we've moved past that
Yep.
moment in the franchise's lifespan, and now we're at the point where you have and me, I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd keeping super close track of stuff. This is something that my ADHD casual self picked up on.
Mm.
So someone who's really in on it, they're going to
Yeah.
pick up on that stuff. But let's say suspension of disbelief, we put that aside.
Yep.
Um, the Acolyte, it's reintroducing dark side Sith problems to a world where the Jedi have been allowed to become comfortable. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they've been allowed to be space cops without evil space cops,
Yep.
essentially. Space wizard cops, whatever. And it's I guess it's gonna explore the effects that that'll have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the first two episodes dropped on the fourth, was it? 5 days
Yes.
ago.
It was very
Um,
confusing because on their Facebook page they were saying it would drop Wednesday. On their streaming it said it would drop Tuesday, and then on Monday it said it was dropping Monday, so it was a whole big thing. But it
of
dropped on
course.
the 4th, which was Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. Tuesday was the fourth?
Yes.
I thought that was Wednesday.
Let's see. Let me double
Today's the
check.
ninth.
Tuesday's the 4th.
Okay. Anyway, doesn't really matter.
Anyway.
Um, so before we get any back into any of the nitty gritty of it,
Mhm.
let's get the big important question out of the way. What did you think?
So, when I first got into this, I kind of fell into the pit of the negative reviews coming from it based on that one interview and the director's personal opinions on stuff. So I was going into this going, this is going to be that kind of show. Um, but getting into it, it was actually much better than I was expecting. What I thought was going to be was going to be in the show and what the show was going to be following wasn't there, so I was pleasantly surprised by that. Um, I also was pleasantly surprised by the level of competence with all the characters in the show. We can get into that a little bit later. If I had any real major problem with the show was I feel the choreography felt a little too we're doing a take, let's test the choreography, and some of the dialogue I felt was a little clunky,
Mm,
especially when our villain introduces themselves to one of her Jedi targets.
mm.
Like that whole monologue that she does, I was like,
I think that was intentional. I
okay.
think it was intentionally meant to be a way of showing the viewer that she's just this dumb edgelord kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's that whole like
Attack them.
master whoever attack me with all your strength, like that's absolutely something like a 15-year-old who has watched far too many movies would do. And
You're
I
right.
think that that's sort of what they were getting at with her, is that like yes, that little speech is cringe because she's
A,
in that
an edge lord.
mindset. Right, she's in that mindset. She's a pissed off kid who doesn't think beyond being pissed off. So while I agree that I was like, ooh, workshop that,
Yeah,
but I don't think the writers were the ones who need to workshop it. I think the character was the one who needs to workshop it, and
that's fair.
I think that was an intentional writing decision. That said, I can still understand if that
Yeah.
sort of took you out of it.
Yep.
That's that. I don't know if I agree on the choreography. I thought the choreography was pretty solid for the most part. I certainly thought it was better than some of the choreography we've gotten in Star Wars in the past. We've
Mm,
gotten some weird floaty choreography in the past. So
that is true.
if it felt a little stiff or sloppy, I'm kind of okay with that, especially after Rosario Dawson's the performance as uh wow, what's her name?
Ahsoka?
Thank you. I couldn't remember Ahsoka's name. I thought a lot of Dawson's Ahsoka choreography was really stiff and
Mm,
kind of stilted.
yeah.
in
Um,
a way that I didn't care
yeah,
for.
like the fight scenes, like I said, the sequences were cool
Hmm.
and all that, but I don't know, the way they were performing it, it just felt like they were trying to remember the choreography they were doing. Like it didn't feel like
Okay.
a natural um
Mm.
piece here.
I don't know that I got that vibe, but I can understand it. I didn't mind the choreography too much. I thought my big problem was I thought a lot of the performances outside of the I can't remember her last name. Her first name's Amanda. She plays Osha in May.
Okay.
Her performance was great. She
Hmm.
did a really good job of playing two different people
Yes.
in the show, and that's something you don't get a lot. You
Hmm.
sometimes people play twins, and it's like you're playing the same person.
Yep.
She played the two twin characters in a very convincing way. I thought that was really good. But then you got I kind of was disappointed with um I'm blanking on some of the character names. The
Yeah.
Asian Jedi
The
Master.
yes.
His I can't remember his character's name. But that actor,
Soul, Master Soul.
Master Soul. I was a little disappointed with his performance. I don't know if that's direction or the actor. I like that actor a lot. He was really great in Squid Game.
Hmm.
Um, so I suspect that it could be one of two things for me at least. It could be the director, kind of like pulling him back, which has a history of happening in Star Wars. Or it could be that he's just still getting used to performing in English.
From what I heard, I don't know how true this is, but
Okay.
supposedly he was so inspired by Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon that it inspired him to push to learn English so he could be in Star Wars.
Yeah, so it might be that he's just still getting used to performing in English, which is fine. That's gonna happen when you have an actor who's still learning the language they're performing in
Yep.
theoretically. Um, I didn't get Qui-Gon vibes off of him. I don't know if he was going for Qui-Gon vibes.
Um, yeah, no, I don't think he was.
I kind of got from him the vibe I got was Ken Watanabe's character from The Last Samurai
Okay.
was kind of the vibe I got from him, sort of trying to uphold this ideal while maybe not still entirely feeling all of it. I don't know. It's only two episodes, so I could just be assigning stuff, but I
Mm,
get the feeling that like he may be the character that kind of pulls the Qui-Gon down the line of being like, I don't know if I am feeling the Jedi Council as much anymore.
mm.
Because he was clearly the one who was willing to trust
Yep.
where none of the other Jedi were.
Hmm.
Which brings me to my least favorite fucking character. I hate Yord.
Okay.
I think Yord sucks. I think his actor is doing a poor job. I think his dialogue has been the worst in the show. I
Hmm.
hate I hate his hair. I hate his name.
Yep.
Uh,
No, he's got that
and
generic hairstyle like that what people have been calling the Killmonger do. Like it's
right,
been
which
everywhere.
well, one of the things I suspect about Yord is that whoever came up with Yord really liked Bel Zettifar
Mm,
from the books, but was told we can't put Bel in the show. Bel's not going to live another 200 years.
yeah.
And so he went, well, that's fine. We have Bell at home, and we get Yord instead.
The bell at
Um,
home.
exactly. I think Yord is a far inferior uh, attempt at the same basic concept of
Hmm.
like this sort of himbo fucking Jedi, and I don't like him.
Yep.
I don't like
And
him.
I think what solidified me not really liking this character was the unnecessary shirtless scene.
You
Like,
see that right? That's where they were trying to go for like the himbo vibe, but it's
yeah.
like you have to be consistent with that. If he's gonna be like a fun dipshit, he has to be a fun dipshit all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like no, we get to see him with his shirt off, and it's a funny moment. But then it's like he's like walking around all stiff and like he's the paladin, and it's like mm,
Hmm.
mm. Like the pal you if you want the paladin to be comic relief, go watch the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out.
Yeah.
Because the paladin in that was played so straight that he became funny.
Yep.
And I think that they're trying to go for that with Yord, and they're not pulling it off.
Mm.
Um, I do have other theories about Yord, but I feel like we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there are other things to discuss. Um, do we think again, character names are hard to remember. I apologize.
Yeah, but
Uh,
these are. I will notice that I was making this very fun observation. I was like, "Wow, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, Vader. These are names we never forgot." And I'm sitting there. Then we've got like Soul, Mai, Your, and I'm like, "Are we forgetting these names because they're making them too complicated, or is it just a simple case of we haven't had enough time with these characters to remember their names?"
yeah, I think it's just because they're all new characters. Like you and I, we remember Bosk,
Yep.
but we've known Bosk for 30 years.
Yes.
um, I've only known Osha and Yord and May for
2 episodes, which
five
was like
days,
2 hours.
right. So it's I don't think that's necessarily a flaw with the show. It's new.
Yeah, no.
I can't name any of the characters from The Mandalorian outside of like Din and Grogu.
Yep.
And some days if I'm really feeling smart, the mechanic lady that's really funny.
Oh
Um
yeah. I never remember her name. I just remember her name in
Pelimato.
BoJack.
Pelimato.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like so like even on a hit show that's been going for years, I can't name every character
Yeah.
because I haven't known them as long as I've known Bosk.
Yep. The two
Okay.
minutes he's
Yeah.
on screen.
Exactly. That's why I picked that example. Um but what I want to know, do you think Trinity from The Matrix,
Hmm.
that actress, that character,
Yeah, okay.
is she coming back or is she dead?
I'm not 100% sure. When she died, I was like, that can't be it.
Yeah, because she was in all the promotional
Yep.
materials.
I don't know if this was like, like a Psycho deal where,
Uh-huh.
the actress that is dead in the first 2 minutes gets top billing, or if they're playing up to something. But I was like,
That's
whoa, she's dead.
exactly. I wonder, I don't know if they're necessarily playing up to something. I suspect if we see her again, we'll get flashbacks.
Hmm.
But I also am starting to I can't help but wonder, is she in all the promo material just to be dead in 5 minutes? Like,
Yeah.
which is kind of if that turns out to be the case, that puts a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Because like you can
Yeah.
you can get away with that to a certain extent, but
Hmm. But yeah, no, but like I said, every promo, she was in it. I thought it was going to
exactly.
be her and Soul trying to figure
Yeah,
this out.
exactly. I thought she was going to be a major protagonist,
Yep.
and instead she's the inciting action.
Hmm.
Like which is we'll see how it goes, but I can't help but at least point it out
Yeah.
that was a moment where I went, really?
Yep.
Um,
I like I was saying before, this is supposed to be like a mystery show. They promote it as a mystery
mhm,
story, a whodunit kind of a deal. And one thing I was very concerned about in this was the classic whodunit problem, which is characters making dumb decisions so the mystery can continue. And I was
uh-huh.
surprised with like how rational a lot of the decisions were in this. Like I said, Soul went, well, I know Mai exists and I know my Padawan. If she says she didn't do it, I'm going to give her a moment to explain
Mhm.
herself. Um, when Mai goes after the other Jedi Master and he goes, I don't think she did it, the other chick was like, yeah, no, she probably can't be in two places at once. It's like, okay, these people are making rational choices.
Yeah, I mean, Yord is clearly the character that they've been painting as the more suspicious,
Yeah.
but even he had a really great moment where Osha did an objectively dumb thing,
Yep.
where she breaks off after Master Tebbit or whatever the hell his name is.
Yep.
Um, he gets killed, and so she breaks off and she finds the body first, and
Hmm.
she does that classic stupid thing of like, I'm gonna pick up the empty vial and I'm gonna touch the body, and
Yep.
it's like, lady, you're already suspected of murder.
Yep.
Stop touching the evidence. And
And
they come in, and even Soul was like, kind of was
what'd you
like,
do?
you fucking explain yourself. And yeah,
So
so Yord came in and sort of vouched for her, which I
yeah,
thought was solid.
it was solid because it was also smart. It was like a lot of times you would have those kind of characters go, "No, I was following her. She went down a different path. She obviously did it because he didn't follow close enough to see what they did."
Right, or he's
And
just strongly biased and
yeah,
is
like
refuses to see anything true.
yep. No,
Yeah, so
like again, that's where I get like smart decisions were made in a lot of
yeah.
this, which
Yeah,
makes me
they
also lead the question of what's the real mystery? I guess it would be what these Jedi did, which is which kind of obvious when you read the story what happened.
there I think there's a couple of mysteries. I think
Yeah.
what the Jedi actually like the actual thing the Jedi did,
Yeah,
because
what caused the fire?
I think it's probably less obvious than that, you
Hmm.
know. But also the mystery of who is the Sith Master.
Ah,
What is the identity of the Sith Master?
for
Um,
some reason, for right now, I've just been referring to him as Revan because like the voice modulator on his and the mask
yeah,
just made me think of Revan.
I don't think we're that lucky. I don't
Oh
think we're
no,
ever gonna get that.
I'm not saying that it is. I'm like that's just what I've been
Yeah,
calling him for now because
that's
I'm like,
fair.
that's what he is. That's who he is
Um,
now.
I have seen I have a few theories on the identity of the Sith Master. We may as well, now that we've opened that box, we may as well
Yeah.
poke at it. I have a few theories on it, and I think what I'm currently going with, because I did a little reading as well. I wanted to see what other people were thinking on that matter. A lot of people are thinking that it's uh Kimir. I don't know if that's his actual name. The guy that May goes to and gives her the poison.
Okay.
A lot of people are thinking that he's the Sith Master because when she attacks him, he
Hmm.
like really easily turns it around on her,
Yeah.
and he sort of casually prompts her with the Sith code, the pieces a
Yep.
lie part. And I think that actually is some smart thinking on the part of those viewers. But I'm taking it a step further. I don't think he's the master. I think this master has multiple apprentices and he's
Yeah.
pitting them against each other. I think May is an apprentice, and I think this guy's an apprentice, and that he's gonna try and betray her down the line to kill her.
That was actually what my first impression was when I first saw him. Was like, oh, this dude's training multiple people.
Uh-huh.
This guy's one of his pupils. That was my
Right.
first initial thought on him.
I don't think they know, however, or at least I don't think May knows that there are other apprentices though.
Mm,
I think May believes she's the only apprentice.
it is possible, yes. She
And I
does kind
think
of act like she's this, oh, this is my quest. I can do it all. And
right,
plus, when she does confront him, we only see her talking to the Sith.
right. And we barely even see the Sith in the first two episodes. We see
Yep.
him in the distance in silhouette and he pulls out the lightsaber.
Yep.
So I think this guy is just an apprentice. He's not actually the master.
Hmm.
He may be the guy who has been training May.
Maybe.
May think her master is a master, and it just turns out her master is an apprentice, and there's another guy.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the real master is going to end up being one of the Jedi characters we're familiar with.
Okay.
I think, and my current candidates, and this is based on zero evidence. I'm purely speculating right now. My current theory on who the actual Sith Master will be is either Yord or Vernestra Rowe herself.
Okay.
Um, Yord because he's such a fucking
He's very gung
paladin character.
ho of getting
Right.
her in trouble.
Right. And he's like very interested in her, but at the same time followed her that in that one scene and vouched for her to make sure she didn't actually get in trouble.
Yep.
And like been his efforts to bring her back. It's like he really seems to be trying to get her to confront her sister if you look at it in a certain light.
Mm.
Like there's something he's doing there maybe. But for Vernestra, one of the things I was reading up on is that in the later books that I haven't read, which I don't know if I plan on reading them at this point because Vernestra is my least favorite character in the High Republic books.
Yeah, I
Um,
did a quick wiki on her and I was like, I don't like this character.
she's a little too. She's kind of guilty of all the stuff people accuse Rey of being, which
Yes.
is like a little bit Mary Sue. I'll get into
She's
that in a bit though.
yeah.
But Vernestra in the books, as of right now, has become like what they call a way seeker, which is
Mm-hmm.
a Jedi who's become disillusioned with the Jedi Order and goes to walk their own path outside of the Order to learn the truth of the Force there. Apparently, she has come back to the Order since, but I wouldn't. There's a part of me that thinks
She
Star Wars has a bad track record for child prodigies
yeah. Um
staying good.
and she has been like very um do what I say kind of a mentality.
Yes,
Like when
very
she went to Master Soul,
authoritarian.
she's like, "No, you're doing this, you're doing that."
Right. And it could be that she could be trying to orchestrate a confrontation between May and Osha to either collect the set, and now she has two,
Mm-hmm.
or push May to kill her sister. You know,
Mm.
like Kylo Ren killing Han Solo,
Yep.
killing his father to try and ascend further in the dark side. It could be a test for May. Kill your sister, ascend further, or get the hell out of my way. You know?
Yep.
Um, and she certainly is in a position to orchestrate that relatively easily.
Yeah.
Um, I it and there's something about the fact that of all the characters in the High Republic books, the only one that is going to appear in the show and the only one that seems important enough is Vernestra Rowe, who has
Mm.
been a child prodigy from the very beginning
Yep.
with a unique lightsaber that I hope we don't see on the show because it's dumb. uh, and now she's calling shots
Mm-hmm.
in a show about a dark side user. It feels like she has more of a part to play than what has essentially so far just been a cameo.
Yep.
So my current theory, I'm leaning heavily towards Vernestra as the actual Sith Master. Whether or not that's the Sith Master that's actually been interacting with May has yet to be seen.
Yes. Um it is interesting. Like I said, that seems to be the big mystery of the show is who is this Sith pulling all the strings?
Hmm.
Um, which again, I think is helping with some of the show's lesser mysteries that they're kind of like spoon feeding to us because it makes, like I said, it makes it easier for, less dumb decisions and all this jazz because it's not focused on the who did it. It's more a who's making it all happen.
Right. We know what was done, and we
Yep.
kind of already know who done it. We know who's doing the murders.
Yep. But
You
we don't
know.
know the why and what the other person benefits from. We don't know what this Sith gets out of this other than an apprentice.
Right. I mean, it's possible that the goal here is just kill a bunch of Jedi. You
Yeah.
know, like that seems to we really don't know what the Sith want generally
Yep.
outside of like we've seen Palpatine, he wanted to be the Emperor, he got it.
Yep.
But outside of that, most of the Sith have just been like we kill Jedi and we do fascism. And it's like
Yep.
where's the other motivations? So I do kind of hope that they expand on what the Sith really want outside
Mm-hmm.
of just to do bad guy shit. um because I do think that in Star Wars overall that has been not that well handled.
Yes. It's been a very classic just I'm evil because I'm the bad guy.
Right, like
That's what we that's what we do.
it's an inherently selfish ideology, and so
Yep.
I do selfish things, and the selfish things I want to do just happen to be murder and genocide and
Mm-hmm.
fascism and all the worst possible things you can want. Like at no point have we seen a Sith whose whole thing is like, I just want to play video games
I just want to
and
use the
like
dark side to make my life easier. Like
right,
that's
right, like which granted like that's messed up,
yeah.
but that's not necessarily murder and genocide and fascism. Like at no point do we see a dark side user fucking use the mind trick to get out of a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Which, though,
if
oddly, technically, we see a lot more Jedi use
we
that
see a
kind of
lot
stuff.
of, well, that's fair. The Jedi themselves have
Yep. Like,
some
I
not so great
just
tendencies.
I did like that in this show, how we're showing just like what the Jedi influence is. Because we don't really see that in episodes 1, 2, and 3, they always talk about how, oh, the Jedi are after power and corruption, and you don't really see that. And I like in this show, like we're seeing, oh, there's a Jedi temple on every planet. They're kind like you mentioned before,
Yeah,
they're basically space cops. Like
yeah,
we're
that
seeing more
they
of what their influence is in the galaxy.
I do want to see more of that in the show though, because I feel like they've shown it in a very superficial way where it's like there are temples and like there's that one line of like, hey, the Jedi Temple's not a place to be playing around, kid. Get out of
Yep.
here. Um, and like there's that scene in the beginning where like the Jedi is like in the bar with everybody, but like
Yep.
clearly people are like, oh, that's the Marshal over there. Be
Yep.
careful.
Or
Like,
my another favorite part was is the other guy when the Jedi confront him, his first line is, "Oh, please don't erase my brain," or whatever it is you do.
right,
Like,
right. Like there is that, but I want to see more active
yeah,
like I want to see at least one or two scenes where like we see a Jedi actively doing what the Jedi do day to day
yeah,
outside of this investigation. I would like to
mhm,
see that. And that also plays into something that I another sort of underwhelming thing that I felt for the show. Um, Visually, I feel they've failed to establish the time frame. Like in the sets have been great. The show
no,
looks great. I don't
it,
want to say the show doesn't look good,
yeah,
but
production quality is great on this
right,
show.
as always. But you could put any number of these set pieces into The Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
it would slot right in perfectly.
Yep.
And I was kind of hoping to see more like if you like how you compare the prequel trilogy and the sets, well, sets,
Yeah.
the environments from the
There you
prequel
go.
trilogy to the original trilogy, you can see, okay, the architecture was different,
Yep.
even just 30 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
This is 100 years before that, and there's like
It,
the architecture
the
feels the same in a
yeah,
lot
the
of
the closest thing we got is the Jedi robing is
right, and
is different, but you
and
can
even
still
that doesn't
tell.
feel as different
Yeah,
on camera. Like I've seen in the art, like I've, 'cause I've read some of the comics,
yeah,
and like yeah, there's a distinct visual to the Jedi, and that the white and the brown with
hmm,
the gold, and like in the comics it really stands out, but on screen I have noticed it doesn't feel that different from prequel trilogy Jedi.
yep,
I feel like they need something to visually establish the difference in the timeline, and I feel they've failed to do that so
yep.
far.
And another piece of that is also is that I think they pick from too many different bits. Like they could have like one thing they could have done is like with the droids, you can do a nice visual of time period with just how the droids work,
Uh-huh. The
but
droids, how they work, how they look.
OSHA's pocket droid looks like from Jedi Survivor to me. Like it
Pit
reminded me of that little bird thing that he had.
BD is great. I actually do like Pit,
Mhm.
but Pit definitely feels like they designed the toy and
Yeah.
then they were
Oh,
like, put it in the show somehow.
yeah. No.
Um,
But like,
I agree that Pit feels like something from later in the timeline
yep.
because like it feels more advanced.
Hmm.
Like you're telling me that Pit is less advanced than an astromech droid?
Yeah.
Like R2 is huge.
Yep. And
Usually,
in
at
that
least in the
time
real
frame, they're
world,
sitting there
technology gets
going,
smaller.
yeah. And in this time frame, they're like, oh, astromechs are the thing. They're the thing to use.
Right.
And like I said, Pitt looks a bit more advanced. He's got more options. It looks like he can turn
Uh-huh.
into some sort of welder. He could turn into like a communication. He could be broken up into multiple pieces.
And I think the mistake they made with Pitt was making Pitt actively a droid.
Mm,
If Pitt had been a handheld multi-tool with like a lesser AI that they
yeah.
didn't call a droid,
Yeah.
I think that would have flipped the entire vibe of that particular
Mm,
character, I guess you have to call
yeah,
him a character because he's a droid.
yeah,
If they had just not called him a droid and called him something else, I think that would fix that certainly, because he seems to be able to do everything that an astromech can do,
yeah.
but in your at your side.
Yep. Which makes him so much better because, like you said, R2's huge. You can't really sneak around breaking into things with
Right.
R2.
It makes him more versatile. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I won't say he's necessarily better than R2 because R2 you can send on his own to go do stuff.
Yes.
But in the context of like being an adventurer,
Mm-hmm.
I would pick Pitt over R2 any day because
Yeah.
that's just a little guy I can have on my hip. I love the BD droid that, like you said in Fallen Order. I love that he rides on the back, and he
Yeah.
and even BD seems like a slightly better version of R2,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit less useful in a larger sense, but BD can go all over the place. He's scanning stuff, he's hacking stuff, but BD also presumably was invented years after the astromech
Mm.
because we were introduced to BD1 after.
Yeah.
So it's certainly
Yeah. It takes place after three,
uh
but before like during or the middle around
yeah,
four.
yeah, exactly, like 4 or 5, that timeline when Vader's still kicking around killing Jedi. Like so it's like it makes sense for BD to potentially be a new iteration on that idea,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Pitt feels out of place. I agree with
Yep.
you on Pitt feeling a little bit out of place in the timeline.
Uh,
Um, the ship designs for the most part feel pretty much the same. I
Yeah.
did like seeing the Jedi ship. I wish we'd gotten to see more of it. That little
Mm.
Jedi fighter, the Vector that
Yeah.
kind of like soared in. I wanted to see more of that.
That
Um,
that part was a little confusing to me in one scene was when they go to the Trade Federation ship to get OSHA
hmm.
was I I lost in translation that there were two different ships because when she was piling away and everything was crashing, I was like, wait, where's your and everybody?
That transition was a little rough. The
Um,
transition
yep.
from that to the prison ship was
Yep.
definitely a little tough.
Um,
They could have done better with that.
but one thing I did like about the prison ship was I loved that the pilot droids were the chairs.
Yes, I thought that was a really slick move. And that I feel like that stood out to me as like, oh, we
Yep.
haven't seen that before. And
Yeah,
I want to see more stuff I haven't seen before.
exactly.
Like I think that's ultimately what I'm getting at is like we haven't seen a lot of this High Republic stuff before. We've seen one High Republic droid, sorry, spoilers for Jedi Survivor. We did see a droid.
Hmm.
And we've seen like I think one of the High Republic lightsabers made an appearance in Battlefront.
Yeah.
I think the Stellan Geos lightsaber, which is one of my favorite lightsaber designs, which makes me so sad that we haven't seen all the lightsabers we've seen have been the standard tube.
Yep.
Like none of them have had the crossguard. The crossguard's been such a major visual touchstone
Yeah.
for the High Republic lightsabers that it's like not even Soul doesn't have one. Like at least come on.
Yeah.
Yours doesn't have a literally none of the Jedi have had a
And
cross guard on their lightsaber, and that's been such a major
yep,
part of the High
like
Republic.
and yours got a yellow blade, which means, like temple guard kind of deal. So you'd think
Not
you'd have
anymore.
more.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
They took that and threw it in the trash a while ago. Um, the only like blade color that has any meaning to it is white now,
Okay.
and that's specifically because I think this was in the Ahsoka novel.
Mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, get in the comments. But apparently you can like rehabilitate a Sith crystal,
Mm.
and that's what turns it white.
Okay. I knew about
Yeah.
rehabilitating the crystal. I didn't know that white was
Yeah,
an indicator of that.
I think that's where the white blades come from. But other than that, I think the blades are just whatever crystal you found, which
Mm.
honestly I kind of prefer. Like
Yeah.
the idea of your crystal color, your blade color having to do with like what type of Jedi you are felt a little too gamey to me, a little too gamified, which like is fine if you're playing a game.
Yeah.
But in a movie, it's like I don't want to be able to look at somebody and be like, "Oh, that guy put all of his stats to Dex." Like, come on.
Yeah. I
Let's get away from the power scaling.
I will agree. It was cooler. Like I liked it more when it was just different color lightsabers like that. And of course, the reason why we went from blue to green was because green didn't work well with the blue screening in
Right,
Return of the
right,
Jedi.
right.
um, but I liked it better when it was just their color. But then when everyone's like, "Oh, this means that and this," I was like, getting a little.
Yeah, it's and it's
It's
that's one of the things that is a habit amongst especially nerd fandoms
yep,
where it's like you want to assign meaning and importance to every little
everything.
thing, you know?
Yep.
And that's where you I personally have taken to try to take to heart more and more these days. Just that, like I said it before, Harrison Ford, it ain't that kind of
Kind of
movie, kid.
movie.
Like, it's like the lightsaber is yellow because it's yellow.
Yep.
The lightsaber is purple because Samuel L. Jackson said, "Can I have a purple lightsaber?"
Yep.
And George Lucas was like, "I don't know." And Sam Jackson was like, "No, I want a purple lightsaber." And George Lucas was like, "This black
Nope.
man's gonna beat me up." Like, like it doesn't have to have that deeper meaning, and I'm kind of
No.
glad that it doesn't seem to anymore.
No. And which of course is
Excuse me.
causing a lot of nerd outrage. Like I've seen a bunch of articles complaining about yours lightsaber color. And I'm like,
Really?
yeah, oh, people were going, oh, that's not what that means. He should that's for Temple Guard and all this other stuff. I'm like, really, guys,
I
you're
see
really
that
getting
discussion. I see that kind of discussion in a lot of Mandalorian
yep,
fan circles too, where like there was an old comic that made the armor colors significant, like each had a
okay.
meaning, and people have taken that as gospel ever since, even though
Okay.
those comics are no longer canon,
Mm-hmm.
haven't been for years. So like when someone showed up in, like Bo-Katan shows up in blue armor.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well that means this. That means that her mission is this. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It means she likes the color blue.
Yeah.
Or her family colors are blue. Like
Yeah.
that's all it means. His lightsaber is yellow. Why? He saw the yellow crystal and went, yoink, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I
that's all it means.
yep, no, but there was a big discussion about that. It's funny, it was like it was, discussions of that and then discussions about other stuff that's no relation to the show, so I'm not even going to bother mentioning it because it's pointless.
Fair.
But overall, the show is doing good things. It can go with some improvement,
Hmm.
but we are only 2 episodes in.
Right.
We could by the end of this series being like, oh my god, this thing is the greatest thing, and forget half the stuff that we didn't like in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say I have a lot more criticisms than I have praise right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do also largely want to say, like you said, we're 2 episodes in.
Yep.
We haven't the plot hasn't really had time to get off the ground.
Yep.
And there's a lot of opportunities for them to address the problems that I've had. They may go
Mm-hmm.
to a planet that is like visually the most High Republic in the world.
Yep.
OSHA may pull out a lightsaber that has a cross guard on it,
Mm-hmm.
or Jaxie or whatever the hell her name is, the
Oh yeah, she's an interesting design. I like her.
X-23. She's
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah, I like her kind of design.
Yeah, she's neat looking. I do. That's another thing I like is that they do have more of the weird aliens. Like
Yes.
that one, like Yord's Padawan had like the weird ears, like almost like a
Yep.
bat. Like I thought that was cool.
Yes, I do like that they're
But
kind of exploring that, and of course, that's
mhm.
also kind of just shows how far we've gone that we can finally give us these
Uh-huh.
shows with these aliens that can be in the foreground and not just stuffed in the background.
Yep. But yeah, so there's a lot of time for them to address these issues. There's a lot of time for them to bring further characterization to characters
Hmm.
that may feel a little thin. There's a lot of time for the performances to kind of warm up to it because
Yep.
in a lot of shows, especially genre shows like this, it can take a few episodes for the actors to finally kind of hit their stride.
Yeah.
We have to remember these are actors, they're human, they're doing a job,
Like
and acting's not easy.
a prime example. I know a lot of people who hate Ahsoka when she's introduced in Clone Wars,
And
and
now she's
halfway
like
through,
considered
Ahsoka's
Star
their
Wars Jesus.
favorite character.
Uh-huh. Star Wars Jesus at this point.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh, there's
So
a lot of
there's a
chance,
lot of time, yeah.
opportunities for this.
Yeah.
And in our next episode, we're going to see a Wookiee Jedi.
Yeah, I that's another okay, so that's another character that annoys me a little bit, only because people are gonna look at this Wookiee Jedi and be like, "Oh man, we finally got a Wookiee Jedi," and it's like, no, we got a Wookiee Jedi in the first High Republic book. His name
Mm,
is Buryaga, and he's a good boy, and he's a
it-
cinnamon bun, and he's definitely dead by the time the
which,
Acolyte starts.
which is funny because a lot of the arguments I've been hearing right now is that Jedi shouldn't exist because there's only one Wookiee Jedi ever, and that's what it's supposed to be. And I'm like, where did that
No,
come
I
from?
yeah, that comes from a lot of the expanded universe fandom.
Mm-hmm.
I find that to be an issue with the larger Star Wars fandom at whole right now since the Disney takeover and they
Yes.
decanonized all the EU stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the EU stuff, there was so much of it, and it
Yep.
was able to establish so many weird rules. Like maybe in some EU book there was one Wookiee Jedi, and in that book somebody on the council was like, there can only ever be one Wookiee Jedi at a time because the Force will only allow one because the Wookiees are too strong. Like
Yep.
like a throwaway paragraph from an EU book. For all I
Yep.
know, I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't read most of those books,
yeah. From what I
but
read was like people are claiming George Lucas said there was only ever one Wookiee Jedi ever. And it's
oh
like,
well, whoop-de-doo. Guess who's not in charge
yeah,
anymore?
it's like, and also you have to remember this guy that you're using as your gospel decided vibro blades were dumb.
Yep, and that's why we have the dark saber.
Yep.
Because
So
the dark saber was originally going to be a big vibroblade, wasn't it?
yep. Yeah, it
And
was
then
originally
George
going to be a
Lucas saw
vibro
it and
blade.
went, "What the hell's that?"
Yep. Because
They
he looked at it
forgot
and went, it's
vibroblades
just a sword.
existed.
So you
So
can't
yeah, George
trust,
Lucas is not
yeah, you can't
king,
trust
and
him for
he's
everything.
yeah, but also like it's cooler if you have a
Yes.
couple of Wookiee Jedi.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
like you don't have. I'm not saying give us 10 of them. I'm
No, no.
saying like it's cool to have them. I would love to see a Hutt Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be cool.
I would love, and I think it happened
Excuse
in
me.
one point, a Trandoshan
Yeah,
Jedi.
yeah. In the High Republic, there's one.
Yeah, because isn't
He's
there
in the
like a whole
comics
thing like
primarily.
he's with the Wookiee and they don't get along or something?
That may have been a story I didn't read. But
Okay.
there's in the High Republic there's a Trandoshan Jedi, and he's a Jedi Master. He's got his Padawan is Keeve Trennis, I think her name is, and he gets like a whole he has a whole plot line about like his race being, the Trandoshans, they're not
Yep.
nice people. You know,
Yep.
they
For
have a
those,
natural tendency towards violence,
yep.
and
For
how
those who
that
don't know,
interacts
that's the
with the
giant lizard that Bosk is in
Bosk,
Empire
yeah,
Strikes Back.
exactly. Back to Bosk. He always comes back. But yeah, Trandoshans have this natural affinity, natural tendency towards violence, and they do kind of touch on that and how that relates to being a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Because like violent, like that quick to anger, quick to violence
Yep.
thing is more of a dark side behavior.
Yep.
So they do touch on that with Skier. That's his name. It's Sskeer.
Yeah, they have weird names, the
Yeah,
Trandoshans.
Bosk,
Yep.
Skier. But Skier was a really cool character. I'm sure there was another
Yeah.
Trandoshan Jedi, maybe in the EU or maybe somewhere else, that did have to work with a Wookiee Jedi, which would be wild because those people hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
I see a remaining meeting time 9 minutes 55 seconds.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, that's another thing in the High Republic that I want to see translated into the Acolyte of like expanding who is able to use the Force. Like
Mm.
I'd love to see them bring in even just in the background. Show me a Jawa. Show me a Jawa with a lightsaber. Come on. Or is that what Yoda is?
Mm.
Is Yoda
You
just what happens when a Jawa takes off the cloak? We don't know.
well, actually, no. The chick from
Yeah,
Mandalorian says they're
they're
hairy.
like rats. Yeah, they're like hairy. I mean, Yoda's a little hairy.
He
He's also
is,
very
he could
old.
shave.
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
happens when you shave a cat? You get all those really wrinkles
Yeah.
and such. There you
Grogu
go.
might have alopecia. We don't know.
Yeah. And with that, we are canceled.
That's stupid. We're not canceled. I didn't say anything wrong about people with alopecia. I just mentioned alopecia as a
We
thing.
made Yoda a Jawa. We're canceled. That's great offense in the Star Wars community.
I've been making the Yoda's a Jawa joke for like 10 years, man. It's the funniest idea to me. Just I'd love to if I ever meet any of the voice actors who have done Yoda, I just want to have him say Utini. Utini.
Sir, hungry are you? Whoopee!
Uh Unrelated, but there's a great Jawa character in the new Star Wars Hunters game.
Okay.
It's because it's like a hero shooter, like Overwatch.
Mm.
And so one of the characters, his name is Utuni, and it's because he's two Jawas, one on top of the other's shoulders. And I've gotten killed by those two Jawa motherfuckers so many times. Uh, but yeah, show me a Java Jedi. I want to see it.
Yes. Well,
Um,
so the next episode drops this Tuesday.
mhm.
So we will be back to
Yes.
discuss that. Hopefully, James and maybe Phil will be able to join us
Hmm.
with that. So we'll get more opinions
Yeah,
on it.
it's a little tougher for Phil. He's in
Yep.
China, so we
Yep.
may have to schedule it a little earlier, but we'll talk about that
Yeah. We'll see.
off
We'll
camera.
work how our schedules work out.
Phil did say he liked it, by the way. He
Yep.
told me to point out that he did like it.
Okay.
And apparently he spotted a race from KOTOR in the background. Some kind of like Aqua people. Let me see. I'll pull up my phone real quick.
Oh.
This is unprofessional.
Oh
Pulling out
no.
my phone during a meeting. Um, Let me pull up his message. If WeChat will load. Cellcalf? He said the spelling's wrong. They're Waterworld dudes.
Okay. I think I know who he's talking about.
Yeah. I never played KOTOR. That's what's gonna get me canceled
Yeah.
in the Star Wars fandom. I never
I
played
played
KOTOR.
KOTOR once and I cannot remember for the life of me. I remember you do go to a aquatic planet
Yeah.
once.
So I guess they're from there. I don't know. KOTOR fans, get in the comments.
So,
Um,
yep. So,
yeah, so I'm
thank you all.
hopeful. I'm
Nope.
hopeful. I'm sure it'll get better. Uh,
Yes. I'm not
and
passing judgment. I think there's a grand total of 10 episodes for this.
Okay, so yeah, we've got eight episodes to
Yep.
really pick up steam.
Yep. So like by episode, since it's only like, see, I'd probably use like the third to fourth episode will be where I'm probably going to really pass my judgment and if the show's really going to get forward. Because if it's not
Hmm.
good by episode 4, then we're going to have problems.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with that. 4 episodes, I think, is a solid amount of time to give it to pick up.
But yeah, so thank you all for listening. What did you
Yep.
think of Acolyte? Are you enjoying it? Are you just passing it by? Or are you genuinely what do you think? What are your theories on who the Sith is? What'd you like? What'd you hate? What can they improve on? And
Get
so
in the
yeah,
comments.
get in those comments. And yes, so thank you all for watching. And
Yep.
until next time, fearless gamers, take care.